Hi, Dan Tokar here, and today at the Willow Forge I'm going to show you how to take a ratty old worn out triangular 3-square file and turn it into an engraving tool, and maybe we'll do a little bit of naive engraving. The first thing is you don't really need the tang on these things. And depending on how hard it is, sometimes the tang is hard and sometimes it's not. So you see that's actually a soft tang, but you can still break the tang off. Now I'm going to go over to the grinder. Okay, I'm at the grinder, and the first thing I'm going to do is grind off the rough broken end. So what I've done there is grind a slight crown and taken the corners off of what will be the hit end of this engraving tool. Now on the other end of the engraving tool, I'm going to use the fine grinding wheel and grind the cutting point. The first thing I've done is grind an angle onto the end of that triangular file. Now I'm going to do the bevels on the two faces. Okay, I've come back from the bench grinder, and what I have is two faces ground on that follow the line of the chisel, so that the line of the file, so that the line where they come together is still straight down the middle. And then I have a back bevel right there. That's the back bevel that's at a different angle, so that if you look at the intersection between the back bevel angle and the side bevels, that doesn't follow the line of the chisel. It's actually down past center. Now, I have a fine sharpening stone, and I'm going to smooth out and take the burrs off of the end of this thing. So I start with the back bevel, and I'm just holding the flat on there, and this smooths out the back. And you can look at it and see if you've got all the grinder marks off. And you don't want to rock it, because if you rock it, it'll round the edges of your tool. So that's the back angle. Now these are the two side angles. And I'm going to do the same thing here. But you'll notice it's at a much flatter angle on the side bevels than it is for the back bevel. I'm going to flip over to the other bevel. And again, you don't want to rock the edge while you're doing this. You just want to smooth out and look and see if you've got a nice clean line where all of those are intersecting. And you feel for the burr. Okay, I'm going to put this back in the little thing of oil. Now, that little burr that's on there, you could strop it off if it was a knife edge, but for an engraving tool, you can just poke it into a piece of wood, and that'll actually strop the burr off. Now, the next thing I'm going to do to this marvelous tool is I'm going to take a torch and soften up or draw the temper on the back end, because otherwise it will be harder than my hammer face and I'll end up with a hammer that has lots of pock marks in it. Okay, torch. I got it to a dull red. Actually, just a deep blue temper would do it, but just the last ½ an inch on the back end of this. And I'm just going to let it cool in air for a bit, and then quench it in some water. All right, now what do we do with this wonderful tool? Okay, there's a piece of 3/4 inch mild steel that I've put in the vise. I'm going to take a horrible old worn out file and get the scale, the black oxide, off the surface, because that oxide layer is harder than the metal and will dull tools, particularly engraving tools, pretty fast. And I'll go a little bit different here to take off the filing marks that I've just filed in there. Once I've gone through all the black, I go to a finer file and I go at a different angle than the direction I filed with the coarse file. This helps to take the marks, the heavy file marks, off. This is also when you have to use your file card. And then you can draw file. I change direction every now and then. No matter how careful you are, you have some built-in ergonomics. Your body will make the same mistakes over and over again because that's just the way your joints work. So if you change directions every now and then, you tend to even out the natural tendencies for your body to go off-center or out of line. All right, that's a draw filed finish. Back in the old days, this was called whitesmithing. I'm going to turn one of the lights off, maybe the other light too. It's a little hard to see the surface on that piece of metal. I'm going to try and move the camera so that you don't get so much glare, so you can get a look Well, it's very shiny right now, but there. That's a smooth, draw-filed whitesmith finish. Okay, so now you've got the steel cleaned off and finished. All right, now that you've got the steel cleaned off and whitesmithed, you need a light hammer. That's a little 4-ounce ball peen hammer. And a pencil or a Sharpie. A pencil or a Sharpie. So, I'm going to put something on here. I am just going to write my name. There it goes. Let's see if you can see that. Yes. So, you want the back bevel up, and you start at a slightly higher angle and you tap the hammer. And you move your whole hand. I tend to lock my hand all right, and I'm going to come and start a new line. In the engraving world, this is known as naive gun engraving, because it's the sort of thing you would have seen, say, on an 18th century American long rifle. You had guys who were not trained engravers cutting designs, engraving things on rifles, and they were unschooled in the sense that they may have learned how to do engraving from their master when they apprenticed, but they had not gone to school to study engraving, so they weren't really artists in the sense of what most professional engravers, particularly today, are highly schooled. They learn the art as well as, I have to come around. I tend to walk around the vise as I'm working, which is a little hard to do with the camera this close. And I just realized that my hand is in the way right now. I'm going to have to move the camera a little bit because I need to be standing where the camera is. All right, and again, you want the back bevel up. Okay, so I've just cut engraved my name into a piece of mild steel with an engraving tool that took me about 5 minutes to make. My 5-minute engraving. You can see that pretty well, but it has a rough surface, so you take your file and go over it. And in the old days, they didn't have sandpaper as such. They would take a stone, and a lot of the polishing and background finishing would just be a stone finish. You see, this is a water stone that makes a nice paste. And it's the paste as much as the stone itself that cuts. So this is our 5-minute engraving class.